If the three letters WRX don't mean anything to you, well, you're watching the wrong car review, because for people like me who know and love the WRX throughout its long, illustrious 30-year career, it's an important car for the Subaru brand. So when a new one comes along, we always pay a lot of attention to it. And in this case, the new generation WRX is both a sedan and a Sportswagon. So it's more practical, more pragmatic, more thoughtful, more predictable, more powerful, and, well, more mature than ever before. So is it still good? Is it still fun? In this review, you'll find out. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll see chapter markers down below, so you can skip ahead if you want, or time codes on your screen. And if you are on YouTube, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because it really helps us out and keeps us able to keep making these videos. All right, let's get to it. The new Subaru WRX range is more extensive and more expensive than ever before, with a range of sedan and wagon models to choose from. The WRX sedan starts from $44,990 for the base grade manual version, up to $50,490 for the RS manual, and tops out at $56,990 for the top spec TS model with the CVT automatic. You can get that continuously variable automatic transmission in the lower grades as well, and the price premium seems big, but it includes a bunch of additional forward-facing active safety gear that isn't available on the manuals. More details on that in the safety section coming up. The CVT Auto is the only transmission available if you want the station wagon version. The WRX Sportswagon, as it's called, starts at $49,990 for the base model, and the mid-range RS is $55,490, and the TS model flagship is just under $58 grand before on-road costs. Standard equipment on all grades includes dual-zone climate control, a flat-bottom steering wheel, a huge 11.6-inch touchscreen media system, 18-inch alloy wheels, LED headlights and daytime running lights, auto headlights and wipers, and more. Step up to the RS and you score a sunroof, sat-nav, a stereo with more speakers, power adjustable front seats and heated outboard rear seats, ultra suede seat trim, and other bits. The TS adds some go-fast extras like adjustable dampers, a drive mode selector, STI trim and logos throughout the interior, but it still rides on 18-inch alloy wheels. Read my review for more details, but all told, the new generation WRX adds a lot of tech and gear for the money, especially compared to the likes of the new, much more expensive VW Golf R. It seems strange that Subaru has decided to put extensive black plastic cladding on the sedan and not the wagon, which is typically the look these days for wagons that are trying to disguise themselves as SUVs. But you're going to make up your own mind on whether you like the look or not, either way. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure about the pinched headlights, the hexagonal wheel arches, or the raked rear end of the sedan, but in person, I think the look is a lot more agreeable than it looks on camera or even on this video. The wagon for me is the pick. I just wish it had that black cladding around the bottom of it, because I think it'd look really good. As for the interior, the design is Subaru to the core. There's a big, bold, colourful media screen, thankfully still with buttons and knobs on the side, but I was surprised that the driver's dial cluster still makes do with a tiny 4.2-inch screen bordered by two dials, rather than a fully digital display which we're seeing in plenty of other models these days. At least Subaru has moved away from the very busy cabin designs of old. Even the steering wheel looks neater and less button heavy. So, what about interior practicality? So the interior has taken a massive step up in this new generation WRX, but what about practicality? Okay, well, there's a bit to talk about because it could be better. In fact, there are elements of the practicality in here which are a little bit frustrating. So in front of the big automatic gear selector, which is very large for some reason, there's a section where you should be able to fit a phone, but you can't. A normal phone won't actually fit in there. It sort of sits up at the edge and it looks a little bit awkward. There's no wireless charge pad either, which is disappointing because really it's 2022 and you should get one at least in the top model, but you don't here, which is annoying. There are two USB ports here, which is good. Electric park brake. In the manuals, get a manual handbrake, so that might appeal to you more for reasons that you probably understand more than me. In here, you've also got big cup holders, and if I show you, they actually will fit the CarsGuide bottle, which is pretty cool. Obviously those fit in the doors as well, and in this top spec TS sedan and the wagon you get felt lined door pockets as well. The other ones just have plastic lining. There's also a covered center console bin. In the models that have sat nav, there's even a CD player, which is a bit strange. Apparently some people like that, and it's weird that it's only for the models with sat nav, because it's not like the sat nav runs off a CD, but that's just a quirk of this car. This car also has this massive 11.6 inch media screen. Now, it does take a little bit of getting used to, because there aren't all the buttons on the side that you might expect. Even though I said that it's great that there are some buttons and knobs, some bits you might just wish there was a button for. For example, when you're in the sat nav menu and you just want to jump to climate, it is down the bottom, but it's just not quite as intuitive. It takes a little bit of learning, so keep that in mind. However, it is bright, colorful, very easy to use in most situations, and even with the models with sat nav, you do get a nice big map layout as well. I personally don't use sat nav that much. I'm more likely to use my phone and do smartphone mirroring with CarPlay or maps or whatever it may be, but I think that this is a nice touch for a lot of customers out there who still want sat nav built in. I like also that this has knobs for the volume and tuning, and buttons for the hot and cold. So you've got dual zone climate, and you can adjust each side independently without having to actually touch the screen, and that's good when you are driving. Speaking of driving, obviously, you've got this new steering wheel, which has a lovely feel to it. The D-shaped wheel, not flat bottom, as some Subaru people have told me. Look, I mentioned before in the design section, it's got a less button heavy look to it, but there are still a lot of buttons on here, and thankfully they are buttons. They're not little touch screens or haptic pads like some other competitors are offering. But I will say that the blinker stalk, I've said this in the Outback and pretty much any newer Subaru that's come out, the blinker takes a little bit of getting used to. It's not an excuse for not using your indicators, but just keep in mind it goes auto on and then it might go auto off, or it might not. It boggles the mind. It takes a little bit more thought than a blinker really should. Now these seats, this is, as I said, the TS top spec, so it's got the micro suede or ultra suede, I think they call it. They are really grippy, really comfortable, and they offer a decent amount of adjustment. Obviously we haven't driven the base model car with the manual seat adjustment, but these ones have electric adjustment on the side. That's good. There's also a bolster adjustment, but it's only in and out, it's not up and down. That might matter to you, or it might not. And I will also say that these seats do offer great comfort and support over longer trips. We did about 300 kilometers yesterday, and I didn't get out with a sore back or bum, so that's good. Another little quirk of Subarus, the sun visors are quite small, so you can often find that you might get a bit of glare coming through the gaps on the sides, and that's all to do with the eyesight safety system taking up a little bit more space than some other safety systems out there. Now, should we check out the back seat? Backseat space in this WRX sedan. Well, the sedan is probably not the one you choose if you're a practicality minded person, but it's still a practical little car. There's plenty of knee room and headroom, well, just enough headroom for me. Foot room could be a little better, especially if you've got big feet, but it's not too bad at all. Remember, this seat is set for me. I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall. So comfortable enough is the way I would describe it. Now, if you have kids, they should be comfortable back here as well, because there are ISOFIX points on the outboard seats and 3 top tethers as well. Plus, you also get heated outboard seats on the RS and TS grade models, which is a nice touch. There's also 2 USB ports back here for those 2 grades as well. But all models come with directional air vents, which is a nice thing. You get map pockets on the backs of both of the seats. There's a bottle holder which only just fits our CarsGuide bottle in that door, and there's also a flip down armrest which fits our bottle too. So that's nice. I mean, it's basically a pretty practical cabin, and if you are considering the boot space, because, well, a wagon is always going to trump a sedan, well, here's a rundown on how they stack up. The WRX Sportswagon offers more cargo capacity than any other version that's come to date, and it's SUV rivaling levels of cargo capacity. And if you choose the sedan instead, you still get heaps of boot space for the size of the car. All cars have a space saver spare under the boot floor. Gone is the 2-litre engine in favour of a 2.4-litre 4-cylinder boxer petrol turbo engine. So the recipe's the same, they've just added a little bit of size, an extra cupful for example, and now you've got more power as well, 202 kilowatts, which is an increase on the old engine, but still 350 newton meters. And that might seem a little small considering it's a bigger engine. And you might be thinking, well, other engines out there are 2 litres and offer 400 newton meters plus, and you're right. But Subaru reckons it's got more to do with the usability of the power than the actual power figure itself. We'll get to that in a sec. And speaking of how it gets to the ground, there's now a 6-speed manual transmission which is available for the sedan only, or an 8-speed CVT automatic. Now, CVT is a dirty word in performance circles, so Subaru's rebranded it the Subaru Performance Transmission. Right. It has paddle shifters and it's available on the sedan version, but also exclusively on the wagon. Does it make for a good drive? Well, let's find out. I wouldn't be surprised if you've jumped ahead to the driving section of this review, because driving is what the WRX is all about. Now, I'm in the top spec TS automatic sedan right now, and let me tell you, it's a different experience in the sedan than what it is in the wagon model. It feels to me like the suspension in this WRX sedan is considerably more intent on offering a sporty drive experience than in the wagon. Now, the wagon is a really nice thing to drive. It's more sedate and smooth and comfortable on most road surfaces, whereas this car, well, it's got the adaptive dampers and the adaptive chassis control, the adaptive steering, all the extra bits that you get in the TS model that make it stand out, but it just isn't quite as smooth to drive, and that might be perfect for you. If you're after that experience which makes you feel like you're in tune with the road surface beneath you, then definitely the sedan seems like it's the better version. Now, I drove the RS manual sedan before as well, and it felt definitely sharper and bumpier. If you like that, then you need to check those models out instead of the wagon. Whereas the wagon, well, it's got a more comforting ride. And also, it has different tyres. Now, the wagon has a skinnier wheel with a more eco-focused tyre package, whereas the sedans have a bit of a fatter tyre and more sporting tyres as well. And you can definitely feel that when you are on a twisty road. You can feel that the turn-in is different, that there's maybe a little bit more grip and agility in the sedan, whereas in the wagon there's maybe a little bit more slip and slide available to you if that's what you want, if you are pushing really hard. And I would say that the sedan definitely feels like it's got a bit better turn-in on centre, and the steering is quite light at that point as well, whereas you do need to turn the wheel just a little bit more in the wagon to get where you need to go. If that matters to you, then maybe you should test out both cars and see which is right for you. Now, the sedan is also a little bit noisier because those tyres have a more aggressive tread profile, and it means that you hear more of the road surface underneath. It isn't deafening, but it's not as quiet in the sedan as it is in the wagon. Further to that, noise is a consideration. Now, part of the discussion that a few of us have already had on this event is it's not loud enough. And I think that a lot of us are right. It isn't loud enough for the traditional WRX customer. That is to say that it's more hushed in terms of the engine. There isn't that really visceral rumble that we're used to from Subaru WRXs. You don't get quite as much of that boxer punch from the exhaust either. And it is just a bit more quiet and composed. But I mean, that's nothing that a trip to the exhaust shop won't fix, and Subaru reckons they might even offer an optional sports exhaust at some point in the future. Really, it probably should have been fitted from the start, and there should be a bimodal switch so you can have it how you want it. Have it loud, have it quiet, that should be up to you. And I think that's a missed opportunity for Subaru with this initial batch of WRXs. But as we've seen in the past with the WRX, the brand often launches the car, gauges feedback from customers, and then adds improvements over the life cycle of the vehicle. So I would expect that we will see a few of those little things added and amended over time. So what about this engine? A 2.4 litre with a 5 kilowatt increase over the 2 litre and no Newton meters difference over the old engine. So is that good enough? Well, on paper, it doesn't look great, but the fact of the matter is that it's a really drivable engine, nice linear power progression, and it offers a heap of punch. It isn't necessarily quite as immature as the last car. There's not that whip crack acceleration, and nor is there the guesswork that you needed with the existing car in order to get the turbo to come on song when you wanted it to. Instead, it's pretty much a more refined and more grown-up experience, more fitting as a rival to the likes of a Volkswagen or Skoda product, you might think, and that's exactly where my mind went. But maybe unlike the Golf R, for instance, it doesn't have that Jekyll and Hyde personality where it can be really sedate and then really manic. There is adjustability to the drive modes. There's options to go through the screen and select them, or this little mode button on the steering wheel allows you to jump between the modes without having to look at the screen or think about it, which I really like. Now, in other models, that just adjusts the SI drive, which we've come to expect from Subaru, which has sporty, intelligent, and a sport sharp mode, but it doesn't really affect the drive characteristic quite as much as it does in the TS, because the TS model gets the adaptive suspension as well, and it does make a big difference to the ride comfort depending on what mode you're in. So I'm in comfort right now, and this road, it's a Victorian backcountry B road, and there's a lot of bumps in the road surface. I can see them, but I can't necessarily feel them as much as I might think I would. Now, switch the mode, normal, sport, Sport Plus. Instant throttle response is better. Transmission's a bit more aggressive. The ride, I can feel more of the bumps coming through into the cabin. And to be honest, I like that. All right, so what about the transmission? You might think CVT, yuck. But Subaru has tried to rebrand this CVT as the Subaru Performance Transmission. And look, if you've driven CVTs in the past and hated them, then try this one, because I don't think you will hate it. It feels more like a conventional torque converter automatic than you might expect, and with 8 preset ratios to play with, it does have a gear shift feel to it. There's paddle shifters, of course, so you can clock through those cogs if you want to, and I will say that it is engaging to drive when you are driving it in manual mode. And even if you leave it to its own devices, it's still pretty good. So if you're expecting a drive experience that grabs you by the scruff of the neck and throws you down the road, like in a Hyundai i30N or even that Golf R when it's in the most dynamic mode, it's not quite there. It's not that kind of experience with this generation WRX. And for the fanboys out there, that might not be the news they want to hear. But for the more mature customer who maybe has owned existing versions of the WRX and is ready for something that's a little bit more comfortable, then this could be the right car at the right time. So what price do you have to pay for that performance? The official combined cycle fuel consumption figure is best in the CVT automatic models at 8.5 litres per 100 Ks, while the manual claims 9.9 litres per 100. All of them require premium unleaded fuel, so that'll cost you a little bit more, and so will running them, to be honest. On test, we drove them pretty enthusiastically, but we saw a return of 13.4 litres per 100 Ks on the manual version and 9.8 litres per 100 on the automatic. That's okay, I think, but if you are going to drive your car hard all the time, you might want to keep that in mind. As mentioned in the pricing section, choosing the automatic model means you score additional safety gear. It appears Subaru still hasn't figured out how to include forward collision safety equipment like autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control or lane keeping assist to its stick shift models. Choose the CVT and you get all that, and arguably you get a safer WRX. All models still have some rear safety gear like blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert and a reversing camera, but the CVT models also add rear AEB, not to mention other things like lane centering assist and auto high beam lights. At the time of filming, there is no ANCAP crash test safety rating for this generation of WRX. If you want more info on what you get in each version of the car, read my review for all the details and the safety and tech inclusions. Buy any Subaru and you get a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty covering the car, but unlike, say, Hyundai's N models, there is no cover if you drive your WRX at the track, so keep that in mind. There is cap price servicing for 5 years or 75,000 Ks, meaning the intervals are better than they used to be at 12 months or 15,000 Ks. It depends on whether you choose manual or auto as to what price you'll pay. You'll see on your screen now we've got an average annual cost for each transmission. So does this more refined, comfortable and thoughtful version of the Subaru WRX live up to its hallowed 3-letter badge and the history of it? Well, the answer is a resounding yes. In fact, I think that the WRX is a better breed for having produced this new generation vehicle. It's a considerably better car than the last one. It's so much more refined and comfortable, and also it offers practicality that no other WRX that has come before it has been able to. For family buyers, it could just be the sporty car you've always wanted. Now, if you want to know my score for this car, hang on, it's coming up in a sec, but if you haven't already, please hit subscribe and the bell icon so you can stay up to date with everything we do on our YouTube channel and read my full detailed written review at the CarsGuide website. It really helps us out if you check both bits of our content out. So, thank you for watching, and here's my score.